Hi guys, it's Shelly here. Welcome to my channel and thank you for joining me today. I will be doing a how I color video today on using soft pastels for basing your coloring book pages and then using pencils over the top. I will be showing this in a page from Fragile World by Kirby Rosannes. I haven't colored in his books for ages and I really felt like it, and I thought this would be the perfect page to try and demonstrate and try to explain how I use my soft pastels for basing. With me, I usually do the basing with soft pastels and then I go over the top with pencils, just like I do with Tombow dual brush pens if you have seen my previous videos. However, if you like the soft results you get with just soft pastels, you don't necessarily need to go over the soft pastels with pencils. I, however, love using pencils. I love doing layering with them and I love the intensity, the boldness and the vibrant colors I get with pencils, which is why I usually always go over the top of whatever I use to base, whether it is Distress ink or soft pastels or Tombow dual brush pens. If you were going to use soft pastels and just leave it at that, the best pages I would do that in is usually grayscale pages, I would say, because you already have the shaded effects on the grayscale, and so when you add soft pastels, it automatically gives you a good result and just shows up the areas that have gray areas on it, the shadow areas basically, and then the highlight areas stay quite light. So along with soft pastels, even Distress ink usually has a good effect on grayscale pages. However, I also found that the soft pastels work pretty well in Kirby Rosannes' artwork. It's not grayscale artwork, however, he does put a lot of shading into his pages to sort of show where the dark areas are going to be, where the light areas are going to be. And so when you go over with the soft pastels, it gives a good result. So if you like that look, you can just place the soft pastels and leave it at that. However, in this video, I'll show how I place the soft pastels, but then go over with pencil. As I always do, I'll show just a small section of the illustration to demonstrate how I do it, and then I'll do the rest of it off camera because it would take me a while. And in this situation, because I'm doing an animal, because I'm doing the bee, and I'll be using first strokes, I think the flicking motion, I do get a little bit bored with that, so I may not end up doing it all in one sitting. I use soft pastels for basing many pages in my adult coloring books, and usually I keep it very simple in that I'll choose one color of soft pastel and I'll base an area, and usually it's an area that's quite large. So for example, the sky or the grass or ground on that particular page, and I'll use that one color to base just to cover up the whites of the paper. And then depending on what element I've based, I would then go over with pencils to add the extra definition, to add extra features, shadow areas, highlight areas, and that's mostly how I use my soft pastels. But in some illustrations, like in Kirby's work, for example, you're able to use the soft pastels to blend and to also create the shadows with your soft pastels from the word go before you even come in with your pencils. I usually work from my lightest shade of soft pastel and go a little bit darker. So on this page, for example, on the bee, I will first be working to lay down the color I want for the yellow parts of the bee, the yellowy orangey bits, and then I will go and lay the base layer for the darker black or dark brown areas of the bee. Kirby makes it really easy for us to identify the highlight areas and the dark areas because of his shading techniques where he uses the strokes to mark out where the dark areas are. So I just follow his guidance basically, and I use my lightest shadows where there is no or very little shadow lines, and then the dark areas would obviously be where he gets quite dense with his strokes or his his shading. So for the yellow parts of the bee, I chose a brighter yellow, slightly brighter than the first pencil I'm going to go in with, or the lightest pencil I'm going to use. So it's a little bit lighter or a little bit brighter than that particular pencil. And I just lay down a base layer. Then I use a reference picture for the bee to see what kind of shades the bee has. And so I decided to bring in a little bit of an orange effect into the yellow areas. And so I used a soft pastel, I think it was Terracotta, to add in a little bit of darker or orangey shades to the yellow area. For the darker black areas, I start off with a light brown, or in this case, I think it's Caput mortuum, and I apply that as a base all over, and then I darken certain areas with a darker brown. Just adding these few colors of soft pastels, you will already notice that the whites of the paper get covered up, and you already start seeing a bit more definition to the bee. It is a very soft look, and so once I'm happy with the soft pastels that I've placed down, I then would go in with the pencils. You can add as many colors of soft pastels as you want. So say you were going a little bit darker in the yellow areas, you want to go a bit more orange or a bit more brown, just add a few more shades of pastels to give that color tone that you wanted. So then you have less work to do with your pencils. I will show the shades I'm using of the soft pastels on screen, and I'll have it in the description box below as well, just so you get an idea of what pastels I'm using. I use a combination of a cotton pad for larger coverage so that it's quicker to cover up, and then I also use an earbud to do more small areas, so that not too much soft pastel goes out of the lines of the line art. This is not a big deal though, because an eraser gets rid of the soft pastels very easily. So if it goes into an area that you don't really want it to, you can just erase that area off very easily. Once you're happy with the base layers that you've applied of soft pastels, then you use an eraser. In this case, I use a Dürer electric eraser and a Tombow mono eraser to erase off the areas. I'll show a little area on camera and then I'll erase the rest of it off camera, because the electric eraser does cause vibration, and my setup is such that it will probably shake the camera and you may get nauseous, and I do not want that. So I'll just show a little example quickly and then go off camera to finish off the erasing. As you'll notice while I'm working, the soft pastels do go everywhere and it is messy. I'm sure anyone who's used soft pastels will know that it is very messy to use. And so once you're finished with the base layer, I would make sure you erase any soft pastel that you don't want on the page in certain areas, erase that off, and then you can spray your page with workable fixative. Workable because you want to still go in onto that page and color over the top and still work on that page. But spraying the fixative will just make sure that the soft pastels don't smudge all over your page. But definitely make sure that you've done any erasing of the soft pastels before you spray, because once you've sprayed, you will not be able to remove the soft pastel that you've laid down. I show the fixative that I use on camera, and I do use this outdoors, so I didn't spray it on camera because it's got a very strong smell to it. You need good ventilation, so make sure that you're in a very well ventilated room or you spray it outside. Once that's all done, then you can go ahead and just color your page like you would with your pencils. But it will take less effort because you've covered up the whites of the paper, especially when you're doing this flicking motion, because when you're doing flicking motion, obviously you're not coloring and doing circular motions and blending and covering up the paper. So with the flicking motions, it's more likely to leave white areas or harder to cover up the white areas of the page. So having a base layer, whatever you put down as a base layer, whether it's a Tombow marker or whether you use the soft pastels, whether you use watercolor paints, So whatever you use as a base, it just helps with the process of the pencils going over the top and makes it quicker and easier as well. I will show a little segment of how I use my pencils over the top, and just do a little segment so that you can also see the difference between an area where you've used the soft pastel base and gone over with pencils and the area where you've only used the soft pastel base. And you'll be able to see how vibrant a result you get with using the pencils and how soft a result you can get with just using the soft pastels. And that will give you an idea of what you would like to do in your pages. I have never tried pan pastels, but I think pan pastels would work in a similar way. However, I've heard or seen on other channels that they're less messy, they're smoother. So that might be a good option as well if you do like working with soft pastels. But I can't say anything from experience because I haven't tried them out yet. All I know is it is a lot more pricey than a soft pastel, so I haven't yet considered buying them. Maybe because I don't use soft pastels that much. I do use it for backgrounds and stuff like that, but for basing, there are only certain illustrations that I would use it in, because I tend to do very busy, intricate pages where soft pastels would not always be suitable for, because there's a lot of small areas on a page. But in these images where there's large areas to cover up with the same color, it does really help. I hope this video made sense. I hope it was interesting. It was a requested video from a very lovely subscriber, and I'm glad I finally managed to find a page that I thought was a good page to try and demonstrate how I use soft pastels to base, not just with one color of soft pastel, but a few colors to sort of show the technique I would use if I was using it a little bit more in a complicated manner, if you want to say, than just basing with one color and then coloring over the top. So yeah, I hope you found it interesting, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and hopefully I'll be back with you soon with another video. So until then, take care, thank you for watching, and bye-bye.